They keep pigeons in pigeon coops. And what a pigeon coop basically is a cage. It has they're let out of the cage, and because of the way pigeons work, they're not too smart. They come back where the food is, and a lot of them have eggs, and they come back for those reasons. But once they go in the pigeon coop, they're trapped. They can't come out until the operator of the pigeon coop lets them out. Now, I guess there are certain pigeon coops where that's not true, but for the majority, it's a one-way door, in and no out. Um, you know, that's you. Your government treats you like a pigeon. You know, they do it on a grand scale, which is the passport to get out of the country. Uh, you know, your free movement among states, uh, tolls, and all that. There's just gateways to your cage. Your cage might not necessarily, it is your house, but it's also your state. It's also your country. You know, it's a bigger cage, but yet still a cage. You an eagle, you don't keep an eagle in a cage. Uh, for the most part, they die if you put them in a cage. Um, they don't last in a cage. Uh, you know, maybe if they're raised as a baby, they'll last longer. But if they're caught in the wild and put in a cage, they don't last. A lot of them are put down just for the sake that it drives them crazy. And that's me. I can't be in a cage. Uh, I'm not a pigeon like you. Uh, I don't. When the government does things to you, they treat you like you're a pigeon. They don't treat you like you're an eagle. Um, they want to put rules and regulations on you, stipulations, requirements, policies, all that you do to a pigeon. An eagle doesn't care about any of that stuff. You know, you can't put rules on an eagle. You can't put policies on an eagle. But pigeons, you can, and that's why you're a pigeon. And your government is just pigeons controlling pigeons. There really are no eagles in your government. Uh, the eagles that you think are eagles are really not eagles. They're more, um, if you want to say, higher ranking pigeons. And that's all they are. Uh, because they're dependent on the pigeons to be there. Um, Without their support, they go back into the pigeon coop, and that's all they go. And that's why Trump didn't like when he lost the election, because he was summoned back in the pigeon coop, and he needs to get elected so he didn't end up in the big house where he's going soon. So hopefully, but I doubt it. Uh, and the pigeons, they think they run this world, and they don't. They're just pigeons. The eagles run this world. I run this world. Now, when you go to Manhattan, you see a lot of pigeons. You know, you see a lot of pigeons all throughout the five boroughs of Manhattan. But you would only see a handful of owls or eagles or falcons or anything. Consider yourself extremely lucky if you happen to see one. Just like you're extremely lucky to see me right now and to hear my words. And, you know, I don't look at the world like a pigeon. I don't see the world through the eyes of a pigeon. It's kind of like the mailroom guy doesn't look at the company the same way the billionaire looks at the company. And the billionaire is the eagle, and the mailroom guy is the pigeon. And the mailroom guy wants to be a billionaire, but no billionaire wants to be a mailroom guy or a pigeon. No eagle wants to be a pigeon. So, it's just, and um, what I want to get to is what our government does to us when it comes to our rights, or your right, not mine. I'm not affected by this because I don't live in your world. And you might think I do, but I don't. I don't follow your rules. I don't live by your rules. I don't care what your rules are. Uh, I do what I want, just like an eagle. An eagle has an open nest. It's high. It's very high. It's on a telephone pole type operation or a big building like a NASA community hospital where they have falcons and it's 19 stories up in the sky and nobody can get to those nests unless you have special access. But they're pretty much safe up there, and that's where they live. You know, a pigeon lives under a tree, in a box, you know, under a bridge. They're always hiding. And I don't hide. If I hide, I wouldn't be here on this show. But an eagle doesn't hide. I walk down the street in a dress and my pink nails and my pink toes and my sandals, and I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what people have to say. Just like the eagle doesn't care what the pigeon has to say. The eagle's not afraid of the pigeon. I'm not afraid of you. I don't care what you have to say. You don't see the world the way I see the world, so we're never going to meet on the same page, you know. And it's not a problem. It's not like I'm better than you. I'm just different. Black people aren't better than you or worse than you. They're just different. If you're white or you're Asian, Indian people are not better than you. They're just different. They look different. They act different. They have different culture. They have different language. They're not better. They're just different. I'm not better. I'm just different. I'm telling you the parameters in which I work. I don't follow your rules. Your rules were made for pigeons. They weren't made for eagles. And the national symbol of the United States is a bald eagle. But everybody that lives in the United States is a pigeon. Just go with that. Now, this is your rights. And this is what your government does to your rights. It's just one little piece at a time. One little piece at a time until this is what's left of your rights. None. And because you're a pigeon, you're not smart enough to figure that out. You're definitely not smart enough to do anything about it. So, and I don't want to say the government's smart. They're just patient. They got time on their side. They know this generation is not the same as the next generation or the past generation. And they got away with things with the past generation. And because they got away with those things, it's highly likely they'll get away with them in the next generation. Sure, there will be differences. That's why there's a difference in generations. But they build on each other. They build on past successes, and they they groom you. They you know they don't take your rights away like the whole page. They take one little bit at a time. So you don't complain. You don't riot in the streets. You don't end the lives of congressmen and senators and presidents or police because it's only this big. But they're after this. They want the whole piece, but they know how to do it because they've done it before in other countries. Other countries are like to practice the experiments, what they do here. And the Nazis were an experiment in Germany. And the experiment is still going on here. The Nazis are running this country. Trump has been compared to Hitler. And I don't think wrongfully so. Except Hitler was loved. Trump is not. And that's why he's not as successful. And doesn't have the power Hitler does. But he wants that power. He wants the power of Kim Jong Un. He wants when he steps out of the White House, he has a parade of army men and missiles going down Pennsylvania Avenue because he stepped out of the house. He wants that kind of power in his delusional mind. I mean, he thinks that's what he deserves. And you can't expect somebody like that to respect your rights, you know. And that's why he's attacking freedom of press. Got Stephen Colbert fired. Uh, and that was just the car that led to taking over CBS News, CBS. Now CBS News is MAGA News. It's only going to cater to MAGA News. It shouldn't be trusted. It shouldn't be watched. It should be boycotted. But, with the internet and YouTube and all these other avenues of which people can go, CBS is limited because they're losing market share. They're losing their ability to sell advertisement. And they can't afford to put up a fight. They can't afford, they had a merger. They couldn't afford not to have that merger because that saved both companies, not just theirs. And, with the apps like Paramount Plus and stuff, they only make so much. And they're selling old stuff, really. I mean, Paramount Plus is a lot of old shows that, yeah, maybe you want to watch, maybe you don't. And you can get those shows on a myriad of other apps. So you don't have to go to Paramount Plus to get them, you know. And because they're old, you might not even want them, you know. But, I mean, who wants to pay for a subscription to watch Seinfeld reruns, or Two and a Half Men reruns? You're not going to pay a big amount of money for that. You're not willing to. So you're not going to. But they're trying to control the pigeons, you know. And look, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to smarten you up, make you see that your rights are disappearing. They're going away like snow. They told you, they give you, like, oh, we gave you this right, but you almost lost. Like the gun rights, the Supreme Court a little while back made a groundbreaking law against state laws that were banning gun rights. You had to get a permit, you had to do all these things to have a gun. And the Supreme Court put the kibosh on it. But that's gone. The states are back to banning and permitting everybody, and it's very hard to have a gun in New York. And considering the way they treat it, you don't really want a gun in New York because if you use it, you're looking at a life sentence, whether you have self-defense or not, because they don't care. The idea in New York is if you have a problem, call a cop.
you know, and they don't want you dealing with your own problems because they don't. You're a pigeon. They don't trust you. They don't trust you to have good judgment, and they really don't care about you either. Because if the cops don't come, well, too bad, you know. And we subjugate all of our problems to other people. You know, if you're having a medical issue, you call an ambulance. If you're having a legal issue, you call a cop. If you're having a fire issue, you call a fire department. Uh, there's just always somebody to call. You have a landlord problem, you call 311. You know, you have an electrical problem, you call local. Call the local electrical authority, Con Ed, whatever it may be. There's always someone to call. And you know nothing. You have a problem with your car, you call the dealership, call a mechanic. You never fix or do anything on your own because you're a pigeon in a pigeon coop, and that's all you are. Nothing more, nothing less. You know. And if you ever thought to yourself, you would scare. And that's why they do what they do at school. They dumb you down. They make you stupid. They make you obey. They teach you what to memorize. They don't teach you why whatever you're memorizing came about or why it is the answer that they want you to believe is the answer when it's not. But they want you to believe it's the answer because it works for them, not you. It works for them. That's why high school kids coming out of high school can't even read the diploma they're getting. And it's pathetic. But that keeps you in the pigeon coop because you're not smart enough to get out of the pigeon coop. And that's exactly what they want. So if you're a pigeon,